If you've ever worked with decision management, chances are you've bumped into the ILO log rule language, or IRL. And yeah, at first glance, it can look a little intense. But its grammar is actually super logical once you break it down. So in this explainer, we're going to do just that. Decode the grammar and give you the tools you need to read and write IRL with confidence. Let's dive in. And here's the best news right up front, especially for all you developers out there. You are not starting from scratch. Seriously, if you have any kind of Java background, you've already got a massive head start. The official documentation says it right here. A lot of the operators in IRL are just a direct subset of Javas. That's a huge foundation to build on, which means getting up to speed is going to be so much faster. So here's our game plan. First, we'll learn how to read the language's blueprint. Then, we'll get into the must-know naming rules. After that, we'll dissect the anatomy of an actual IRL rule. And finally, we'll check out the operators that really make your logic come alive. All right, let's start at the very beginning. Before you can write in any language, you have to understand how its rules are written down, right? This first section is all about learning to read that formal grammar notation. Trust me, it's the key that unlocks everything else. When you look at the grammar notation, it really just boils down to two key things. On one hand, you have the actual literal keywords of the language, like rule. Those are always shown in bold. And then you've got these placeholders for bigger ideas, which are shown in italics, representing structures like an entire rule definition. The documentation also uses a few special phrases. Think of this as the legend on a map. The little suffix opt just means the thing before it is optional. The phrase one of is exactly what it sounds like. It gives you a list of choices, and but not lets you exclude certain things from a rule. Once you know these, the formal definitions become way, way easier to read. Okay, so we can read the blueprint. Now let's apply that to something really practical, the rules for naming things. These are the absolute essential do's and don'ts for creating identifiers in IRL. So just like pretty much every other programming language out there, IRL has a set of reserved keywords. You know the drill. Words like if, collect, and exists have special jobs to do. This means you can't just go and use them as names for your variables or functions because that would totally confuse the compiler. But what if you absolutely have to use a reserved word as a name? Maybe you're trying to match a field name from some other system. Well, IRL actually gives you a little escape hatch, the @ operator. If you put that @ symbol in front of an identifier, you're basically telling the compiler, hey, I know this looks like a keyword, but for right now, just treat it as a name. It's a pretty neat trick to have in your back pocket. We figured out how to read the grammar and how to name things. So now it's time for the main event, understanding the core structure of an IRL rule itself. This is the part you'll be working with day in and day out. Every single IRL rule has three main parts. It always starts with the header, which just gives the rule a name. Then you get the when block. This is the if part of your logic, where you define all the conditions. And finally, the then block spells out the actions to take when those conditions are met. This simple when-then structure, that's the real heart of IRL. Let's zoom in a little closer on a condition inside that when block. At its most basic level, what you're doing is linking a variable to a specific class name. This lets you then run a whole bunch of tests on that variable. This simple pattern, linking a variable to a class and then testing it, is really the fundamental building block for all of your rule logic. And finally, let's talk about the operators. These are the action words of the language, the symbols that let you do all the cool stuff, perform comparisons, do math, and build out all the logical tests inside your rules. Just like in your high school math class, IRL operators follow a strict order of operations. This is all defined by something called precedence and associativity. So operators with higher precedence, like multiplication, are always going to get evaluated before the ones with lower precedence, like addition. It's the same logic you've known forever, just applied inside your rules. And this brings us right back around to where we started. The huge majority of these operators are a direct subset of what you find in Java. This is such a massive advantage. It means you don't have to learn a whole new set of symbols from scratch. You can just lean on the knowledge you already have as a Java developer. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of our IRL Grammar Starter Kit. We learned how to read the official notation by telling the difference between the bold keywords and the italic placeholders. We went over the naming rules, avoiding those reserved words, or using that handy at operator when you have to. We broke down the essential when-then structure of every rule. And last, we saw that the operators are basically old friends for any Java developer. So, we've decoded the syntax, we've decoded the structure. You now have the blueprint for writing some really powerful and expressive business rules. The language isn't a mystery anymore. It's a tool in your toolbox. So the only question left is, what kind of complex decisions and powerful logic are you going to build with it?